like and subscribe. Women, when have you ever seen a man you were dating, or related to step in, and correct misogyny in action? Have you ever seen a man tell another that he needs to stop because it is wrong, rather than because of his relationship to you? I was the only female interviewer in a group of male colleagues and we were doing a wrap-up session at the end of the day. We were discussing a candidate, and one of the guys said maybe the candidate did not respond well, because ours is a woman. Cue all eyes on me as the only woman for my response. Bloke to my left went straight in, "What are you talking about?" I doubt that is the case, but if it was I certainly would not want to hire such a misogynist. I did not have to say a word. So refreshing. I thanked him and the lift later. That's an ally. Edit, I am not ours, I am a software engineer. One of my male physics professors reported a male student in my class for taking lab materials out of my hands and saying relax honey and let us men do it, and told me to do the write-up, us men referring to the rest of the lab group. I just brushed it off, even though it was immature because but I was called in as a result of his report and I have always been shocked by his dedication to make his classroom a welcoming space. I was the only one who passed that lab assignment, because it was only my handwriting on the written portion. He also backed me up when a department head was treating me badly, and helped connect me with tutoring and psych resources for issues I was having. He was never inappropriate, he honestly never really spoke directly to me aside from class. Never met another man like him, now that I think about it, especially not in STEM. A male senior lawyer was introducing the female junior I worked for to his client. His client made a comment that she's easier on the eyes than he was, and the senior lawyer stopped the meeting and said you don't make those comments, not here, not out there, not anywhere. If you continue to do so we will terminate our engagement. I will not put this woman in a situation where she will be made to feel uncomfortable. If you disagree with me, you can find alternate counsel and that has always stuck out to me. Not many senior lawyers I know would make a statement like that to long-standing clients, but he drew a hard line in the sand and held the client to it. Granted this wasn't an extreme situation and everyone was sure the client was just trying to make small talk, but that lawyer didn't care how innocent the comment was, it wasn't professional, and he knew that he had to step in and set some clear boundaries. In high school, some kid in my class said some variation of women belong in the kitchen and my male history teacher fake gagged and told him to shut up and said something like look at all the girls that will now absolutely never date you while gesturing to the class. Other than that I cannot think of any though. *FIXED a very strange and silly typo. Absolutely. A young man stepped up and stopped a guy who was harassing me in a pharmacy. I watched groups of students shut down sexism in class and walk female students to classes or cars. I spend time with a lot of anarchists and have seen so many guys do the right thing inside that community. Honestly this question gave me pause, because I swear I don't think I have ever seen a man do this. Yes. I was at a Starbucks and there were 3 men at a table near me. They were East African Muslims. Apparently on his way to Starbucks, man 1 saw a young woman from their mosque, but she was not wearing hijab or modest clothing, she was wearing shorts, and her hair was uncovered. Man 1 said something dumb about men are going to treat her poorly if she dresses like that. She was asking to be attacked, etc. Man 2 said something along the lines of if you think that way about her, that is your problem, not hers. She can do whatever she wants. Man 1 tried to justify his stance by saying she was straying from Allah. Man 3 then said, I feel so sorry for you. Yeah, I have been in the US for 20 years, and you still think that way. Women can dress however they want, man. She can have faith or not have faith and dress how she wants. It was nice to hear. No women around, except me and some baristas, and these guys were still defending the women in their faith and community who did not look typical. It was a random man unrelated to me. Some guy decided to catcall another customer at Starbucks, a college-aged woman, and say 2 disgusting sentences to her. I felt terrified and cold. No, it muster up the courage to say something, and neither could she. A young man who was also at Starbucks, unrelated to the both of us, told him off and said he needed to leave, and we'd honor do that here. Lovely. I don't know if it falls under correcting misogyny, but the whole interaction felt misogynistic, gatekeeping. Early on in the MCU days, I had bought a Captain America shirt with just the SHIELD logo on the front. I wore it to work on a Friday. A guy at work asked me if I like Marvel, and I was like, yeah. I really like the new movies coming out. In response, he started quizzing me on the comics. Before I could even get a word out, 2 other guys heard and shut him down immediately, telling him gatekeeping was lame and to just let women enjoy comics/superhero movies. It was minor, but this was like 8 years ago, and the interaction still sticks with me. Also, the 2 other guys weren't really my friends or people I had a relationship to. They just heard him being rude to me and jumped in. I had quite bad cramps one night at work. I work as a night filler for a supermarket and was taking a moment to breathe through them, so I was standing still with my eyes closed. I had one of my co-workers who isn't good at his job come up to me and say, you know, everyone around you is doing their jobs and you are just standing there doing nothing. You should get back to your F***ing job. And before I could say or do anything, another of my male co-workers comes up, stands in between me and him and goes, mate, she fills 3 times the speed you do. How about you F***k off and learn some common decency, you? It actually made my night. The guy who defended me has 3 sisters, and explained that he has seen the face I was making on his sisters when they have cramps. This guy just turned 18, and is better with the menstrual cycle than a good portion of the men I have met. Asterisk, I'm the only female on the team for reference. God, I've been trying so hard to think of an example. I have a couple of male friends, a trans man and gay man, that I think would stand up and correct misogyny, but haven't seen it because we don't hang out in any situation that would have someone misogynistic around. My gay Latin teacher has stopped many misogynistic things from happening, including chasing away men that harassed me on our school trip. I can't think of a single cis straight man that stepped in. I remember once on that same school trip, I was buried in sand on a beach and my female friends were getting water and a male friend of mine just stood by and watched as another guy felt me up. I couldn't move BC of the weight of the sand, only my chest and face were still unexposed. I remember I cried for my male friend to make the other guy stop, and he just was like, bro, stop it, and then the other guy stopped for a second and then got back to it. Male friend didn't make any other effort, just shrugged. My female friends came back and pulled me out of the sand and dragged the other guy away and helped me approach him later to tell him that if he ever tried to touch me, even just my shoulder, that I would break his nose. Later the girls and I ignored him the rest of the trip. The boys knew what happened and were still friendly with him despite claiming to be my friends. My friend's mom was a parent chaperone and told us we were being cruel and to stop excluding him. The teacher chaperone had seen the original situation happened and didn't step in. These chaperones were not from my school, but from a different school also on the trip. I regret not telling my teacher that I mentioned before. But I was 16 and embarrassed. I saw it once. It had a huge impact on me. I was on a public transportation bus, and a woman was sitting near the window, staring very pointedly out of it. A guy had come and sat next to her in the aisle seat, and he was just taunting her, saying things like "Hi. Are you deaf? Are you deaf? You think you're better than me? Don't act all stuck up. I just wanna be your friend," etc. Eventually he escalated to throwing stuff at her, like picking up sunflower seed shells off the floor of the bus and throwing them on her lap and laughing in a really cruel way. She was completely frozen the whole time, just staring out the window. I should mention here that there was a huge size discrepancy between them. She was very petite, and he had like a linebaker's build. I was sitting directly behind her, and I'd already made up my mind that if he tried to follow her off the bus, that I would get up and followed too to make sure she wasn't alone. Before I had to, this man who was standing in the aisle of the bus next to them looked down at that guy and just went hey, and when the guy looked up at him, he just shook his head. It was so quiet, and so subtle, like a parent correcting a child quietly at a fancy dinner party or something. I wouldn't have noticed it, if I hadn't been watching the exchange so intently myself. Very shortly after this man distracted the guy, the woman jumped out of her seat / over his legs, and bolted for the exit. The guy got up to follow her, and the man just very slightly got in his path and shook his head again. The scary guy just shook his head, and made a hand gesture like it's not worth it, but it was pretty clear that this guy was absolutely going to follow this woman off the bus, if that man hadn't said anything. After she got off, I made eye contact with the man, and mouthed thank you, and he looked so taken aback that someone had noticed. He just shook his head at me too, and moved away from my eyesight. You've been visited by the ghost of a very important man. Pay your respects by liking and subscribing, and he'll grant you 3 weeks of good luck.